So I've had a couple of people ask me how I ran the wiring for the dual color extruder neatly through this. I have it taped up here as the wires go into that, and they go through the same wire loom that already existed, and then I have them feeding out through the center of the V-slot extrusion, and then I just cover it up with this print that I did. I can't take all of this apart and re-show you exactly because it's just not going to come apart. But I'll try and explain it as best I can using one of the other wire looms. Hopefully this will be enough to see it. So at the top, or this is the side of the machine now that it's up, you're going to want your crossbar all the way down so you have some play in this wire loom. And this wire loom, now that I've got it in, I don't want to move it. So I'm going to demonstrate using this one just to give you an idea how I did it. Start by pulling this bushing out of the hole and just pull it up a little bit. It just gives you a little more play in that hole. And let me put this down and mount it so I'm not making everybody nauseous. So you're going to use, instead of this wire loom, I'm going to demonstrate with this one just because it's still loose. But basically, you want to get the idea of where the wire loom is going into the extrusion from the inside and mark it or hold it, and then pull it through a bit. So you know that this is the section that's actually inside the V-slot extrusion. And that's the space. Cut really carefully so you don't cut any of the wiring inside, but you're going to want to cut open the side of this wire loom. I just used an X-Acto knife really carefully. Cut open the side of that wire loom so that you can get into it. And then I fed just a stiff wire through that hole, which went through the extrusion and up through the entire wire loom. And I fed that all the way to the top, where the actual hot end is. And then I fed the wires for the hot end and the filament sensor down to meet up with this wire, attach them to the end. And I took off the plastic connectors on the ends of them. So I just had the wires and they were easier to tape onto the end of this wire, and then just pulled the wire down through the loom again, all the way till they came out the side here. Once they were out the side of this wire loom here, I took a separate wire. You can take it off and reuse the same one, whatever. Push the looms to the side a little bit and feed this wire up through the hole and down through the extrusion. If you look through the end of the extrusion in the front, you can see down this extrusion. So it helps to get that wire in there and feed it through the center all the way out to the front. And then once that's all the way through, you'll have this wire sticking out from that hole. Connect the wires that are coming out of the loom that you've just fed through down from the top. Tape them to this wire and just pull it through and pull the wire down the end of the extrusion and out the front. One of the things you're definitely going to want to try and do if you can, to be able to make this whole process simpler. Hi, having a little trouble. So, sorry. These connectors on the ends of the wires, if you look in, sorry, I can't tell whether you can see that. So, these metal pins, if you fiddle with them, you can push the metal pin down and pull the wire out of the connector. So I did that for all the wires in the connector, and then the wires bundle together easier. So when you tape them to the end of the stiff wire, it's much thinner and you're not trying to feed this big connector through. You're just basically feeding through the width of the wires connected to it, and then just reattach the connector once it comes out the front end. And do that the same for the other wire, the black one, which is actually split and has 2 connectors on it, but do the same thing to those. Then you can just pull them out the end, plug them in, and then you just have to carefully tape or zip tie something above and below the slit you made so that this wire loom doesn't continue to fray over time. And then you can push that back up into the center, and then just put the bushing back in place, and then all the wiring's there. It feeds out and comes out the front right through the hole, and it's neat, and you're done. Hopefully that helps somebody.